Ms. Ambassador, thank you very much for accepting our invitation for the interview. And today we are here in the embassy of Netherlands in Azerbaijan, and we are very happy about that. So we have some questions to you, and we would be very happy if you answer them. And let me begin from the first, my question. It's a very interesting question, and we will talk about your career a little bit. And what are the main goals as an ambassador, and how long have you been working in Azerbaijan?
Okay, very good. Well, thank you so much for doing the interview today. It's always a big pleasure. I've been here since 2020, and before that I was posted in several places in the world, including New York, London, Vietnam, and Singapore. And this is my first posting as an ambassador, so it's a very special place to be. I arrived on the 20th of September 2020, so a very special time for Azerbaijan. So it's been quite a hectic start, I would say, but also a very interesting start and a very important time, I think, to have been here. So if we talk about the goals I've been developing here, and I think I would like to mention three. And the first is obviously to bring the countries closer together and to report a lot back and forth explaining what's going on. So I'm explaining a lot to my capital about what's going on here, but I also talk a lot about the Netherlands to my Azerbaijani counterparts here. And I think that's very important as an ambassador to keep explaining back and forth what's going on, because it's not always so well known in the Netherlands what's happening in this region. So it's one of my main priorities here. And obviously something that we follow very closely is the peace process between Azerbaijan and Armenia. Mm-hmm. And I'm very hopeful that will result in a peace agreement, hopefully soon. But maybe we can talk about that later. So the second point is human rights. It's an important topic for the Netherlands in general, worldwide. And here in Azerbaijan, we decided to focus on gender equality. Mm-hmm. That also fits very well with the fact that I'm a female ambassador. And one of the things I really like in Azerbaijan is I met so many strong Azerbaijani women. It's really remarkable. And I can talk to them about what's going well, what's not going that well yet, and how can we support that. We also work with other international partners on that. For example, this week, the 16 Days Against Gender-Based Violence starts. And that's something that we'd like to work together with other partners to highlight. And the other thing we do is projects on gender. So, for example, in Bilasova, in Jalalabad, we support women resource centers. And we do that together with the Committee on Families, Women and Children, and UNDP. So those things are very important for us to show our support for specific areas. And the third area is economy, and I believe you have some specific questions on that.
Mm-hmm. Now I would like to talk about economic ties between our country and which project, just only your opinion, have already been implemented and which are expected.
Okay, so on economy, there's a lot to do, because what you see is that before COVID, the trade volume was 200 million a year, and it has been really reduced due to COVID and other factors. So since I've been here, I'm actually an economist by training, I've tried to identify where are the areas to develop more. We also obviously talked a lot to the Dutch companies that are active here, and many of them are still working in the oil and gas sector. But there's also quite a few that are working in other sectors. So if I can mention a few, for example, in agriculture, the Azerbaijani government has identified agriculture as one of the areas that they want to diversify in, which I think is a very good development. And obviously the Netherlands, as the second largest agricultural producer in the world, has a lot to offer there. And I think that can be developed more. What we already do is every year at the Caspian Agro, we have a pavilion of the Netherlands with some companies, especially in the horticulture. So on flowers, greenhouse buildings, Signify, Hortilux, Rijkswaan, seeds, and many other areas. And we do that almost every year. So next time in 2023, when all these companies come here, I'd like to profit from that and highlight their expertise even more than we did last year. But I think in general, with all the developments that are going on in agriculture, there's a lot more to do. Then on water, which is very closely related to agriculture, there also used to be more cooperation than there is now. So I think that's another area that we can build up. There's 3 strong water companies, Haskoning, Witween-Bos and Deltares, that have been already working with the Ministry of Ecology and Emergencies and others to identify where they can support. And they have already also restarted after COVID, so also continuing projects. But considering that also water is one of the main areas that the Azerbaijani government has identified that needs solutions, I think that's a really interesting area to explore further. I'm very excited to do that. Now, talking about diversification, I'm also very happy that there's a lot of talk about renewable energy. So the Netherlands is also very strong in maritime and renewable energy. We're talking to the port of Baku a lot. There's again a Dutch company that has supported them with building the port, is now talking to them about the extension of that. Van der Wart, a dredging company, has also been very active already with the port for years. So that will definitely continue. And a really interesting area that we are talking to people about is the offshore wind development. This is very complicated, but the World Bank has been asked by the Azerbaijani government to develop a roadmap. And when that was presented, I was asked to make a presentation about how the Netherlands did that, which I was very happy to do. And we're very keen to share our knowledge on that. I know it's a very difficult and expensive process, but if the Azerbaijani government is interested, we're very keen to share our expertise and to bring relevant companies and investments here on that. Now, the last point is the sustainable city development. There's a lot of talk about cities these days. And what I like about it is that there's a lot of emphasis about green and smart. And I think that's really the way to go. So not only to make livable cities, but also to make cities that are green, especially with all the talk about climate and the environment. It's really important to reflect on that, how to do that well. And again, there's a lot of expertise on that in the Netherlands. A company like Signify that makes smart lighting is already very active here and is also keen to explore other opportunities. But I think in general, to develop smart cities is something that we would be keen to support further.
Thank you. The next question is there any training programs for Azerbaijani students? Now we'll talk a little bit about our education.
Of course. Now, I'm very happy that there's actually a lot of Azerbaijani students that have chosen the Netherlands to study, either for a year or even their full studies. So we are in contact with the alumni organization here. And I'll be very happy to host like an alumni event at the residence soon. I promised them to do that because I consider the alumni, the Azerbaijani students that have studied in the Netherlands as my co-ambassadors, right? Because they know the Netherlands very well. So I'd really like to work with them to explain about the Netherlands, to highlight what the Netherlands has to offer. And they can also help us bring more Azerbaijani students to the Netherlands because they're always very welcome to do that. And there's also already some cooperation between universities going on, for example, between the ADA University and the University of Maastricht. So that's really interesting and promising. And I think more can be done. I'd love to work on agricultural education, for example. So those are areas that I'd love to explore more because I think cooperations between those kind of universities can really be beneficial as well.
Now a little bit about culture. Are cultural programs expected in the near future? Are the cultures of our countries similar, by your opinion?
Well, to start with the first one, I think culture is very important. And it's one of the areas that an embassy needs to work on because through culture you can really express your values, explain where your country is coming from and share what you have. And as an example, every year we contribute to the Jazz Festival. So every year we try and bring a Dutch artist to the Jazz Festival. So even last week we had Mike Del Ferro and his band, and it was fantastic. And one of the things he did that I love is to work with an Azerbaijani artist. So he had this wonderful classical Azerbaijani pianist, and the combination was amazing. I was really looking at it in awe, how they combined that incredible skill of both pianists with this jazz band around it. And it was a great success, and it really is one of those things that brings the countries together. So people enjoy it, but they also get the vibes from the different cultures. So that's great. Another thing we did last year is an event on architecture. Mm-hmm. So surprisingly, there's much more heritage of the Netherlands in Azerbaijan in terms of architecture. And we worked with an Azerbaijani architect who had discovered all that. And with him, we did this event to highlight a few things that happened in the last few years. For example, the wheel on the boulevard is developed by a Dutch company. And also UN Studio, a Dutch architecture company, has done a lot in Baku, in the White City. So there was a few more of these elements that you can highlight. And again, a wonderful example of how you can bring the two countries together with heritage that you even didn't know that was there and that you can highlight through an event like that. So culture is definitely on our agenda, and it will remain there.
Are the cultures of all countries similar, in your opinion?
Well, that's an interesting question, and thankfully there's a lot of differences, because what I like as an ambassador is to go to places and explore the similarities, but also the differences, right? And that's a very important part of understanding a country. And I think in a sense we are similar in our directness. It's interesting that with Azerbaijanis you can sit down and start a conversation. You don't need to work around it for a very long time. But also Azerbaijanis are incredibly hospitable. What I love is the tea culture. Mm-hmm. I'm a tea drinker. I'm not a coffee drinker. So when I heard that Azerbaijan is a tea country, I really loved that. And the fact that you sit down and have these beautiful cups of teas with all these things that you have around it, I really love that. And obviously Azerbaijan is closer to Asia, closer to the Middle East. So there are definitely differences, and that's great. That's something that we can explore. And those Azerbaijanis I've spoken to that have studied or have visited the Netherlands, they're saying the same, that there are some similarities. I think our countries get along really well, but there's also differences, and it's good to explore that and to understand that.
Mm-hmm. What do you like most in our country?
Well, I already mentioned the tea, but I would highlight most the friendliness of the people. Really, when I arrived, it was a difficult time for Azerbaijan, going through the war, through COVID. But what I really noticed is that everyone I met was so friendly and very hospitable. I remember that my family and I went on a trip to Lankaran, and we were in a car stopping somewhere for water, and we met this family that we didn't know, and they invited us to their house for a tea, and it was incredible. And that it makes a country so friendly and so hospitable and so nice to be in. And I still have a lot of exploring to do. I did already visit some areas of Azerbaijan, but there's a lot more I'd like to see. And what is also interesting about Azerbaijan, you have these very different areas. So I went to the south, I went to the north, I went to Zaqatala as well. And there's very different landscapes and peoples to discover and to meet. So I'm very excited for the next 2 years to explore more.
Mm-hmm. What can you say about the cuisine of our country? What is your favorite dish?
Okay, very good. Well, that's easy. I love Azerbaijani cuisine. And what I love most is the first part, so the appetizers. So then you can choose all these different dishes like baba ganoush and hummus, and you eat that with the lovely bread. But also plov, kutab, dolma. There's so much to explore, and every time I go out, I also try new dishes, and again, there's a lot to explore more that I haven't tasted yet. I also love the Azerbaijani wine. It's also very good, and there's also different types that I'm enjoying and trying. So I think it's a wonderful aspect of Azerbaijani culture.
Ms. Pauline, thank you very much. Really was very useful and very interesting conversation with you. My pleasure. And last, what I want to ask you, your wish to Azerbaijani people.
Well, really, first of all, stay the way you are, because Azerbaijan is great and I love the friendliness of the people. But if I can make one wish for the future, it would be peace. We're going through a very difficult time worldwide with Ukraine and many uncertainties around us. And obviously Azerbaijan has been in conflict with Armenia for a long time, but there is a promising peace process going on, and I really hope that will result in a peace treaty between the two countries that would provide stability for both Azerbaijan and for the region. So that will be my wish.
Thank you so much. Really
Great.
appreciate it.
Thank you.